Hi, this is Billy Staples, and it's another segment from Music from the Soul. Today's guest is Rich Herschlag, who was born and raised in Queens. Left home and went to college in Princeton, got an engineering degree, fiddled with music a good portion of his life, and has written more than 10 published books. So we've got a very well-circled guest. You got more labels attached to you than literally anybody I know.
Yeah, you only mentioned about half of them, yeah. But this is a family show.
So, question number one. Give me that background. You're the only person I know that was raised in Queens. So, was it a house?
Lucky for you.
Lucky for me, absolutely lucky for me. What were you raised in? Talk about mom and dad and brothers and sisters.
Well, it was a small lean-to, and I was raised in an apartment building. I was eventually happy to move into a house, but that's all I knew for a while. So I was on the first floor of a kind of a luxury apartment building. It was 2 bedrooms, but it was pretty expansive. And you know what? It was the greatest place in the world.
So the obvious question with sports, you're in Queens. So you're right there, the Mets. And then, of course, in the Bronx, you've got the Yankees. So I've got to ask, Mets versus Yankees.
My dad was a Yankee fan.
So I know that eventually, with graduation from high school, we're going to move you on to Princeton. But I think with a little bit of background conversation that we've had, music and the bass came into your life during high school. Am I right?
Music was in my life from the day I was born. I didn't really pick up the bass until I was about 18.
Okay.
But I took piano lessons for 3 years, from like age 8 to 11. And she was very old school, Mrs. Horowitz, very disciplined, much more disciplined than I was willing.
Mrs. Horowitz?
Mrs. Horowitz, right.
Oh, yeah.
But I never really could be what she wanted me to be.
So this will lead into
eventually.
18 years old.
Right.
So I believe the bass enters your life, and there was like a bass general handbook that could be bought out there, and one thing led to another.
Yeah.
Can you give that to me?
Yeah. In my freshman year of college, I said to myself, okay, I'm now behind all these people who are 18 and playing guitar. They're 5, 6, 7 years into it, right?
I get it.
And they're really good, and I'm 0 minutes into it. So I had like $100 lying around I was supposed to spend on books or something, and I got myself the cheapest knockoff I could. It was like a Takai, which was a Japanese knockoff of a Fender bass.
With the lessons, it leads to, you're a kid that's in college, you're working towards an engineering degree at Princeton.
Yeah.
So when does it lead into that first, we've got a little bit of a band, we've got a garage band here, and we're going to put together some tunes. What age does that hit?
That is a great question, and the answer is a pretty long time, because what it was for me, it wasn't going to be my priority officially, right? I wasn't going to be a professional musician. I was going to be an engineer. So I would just play along with records, 1 or 2 in the morning. Just play along, and it forced me to listen to the bass guitar. So I would do the simplest stuff that I could. I would mimic it. I was probably getting a lot of it wrong, but it was better than nothing. And I sort of muddled through this audition. And I could see, first of all, I could hold my own, sort of, right? But I could see the guitarist was a few years older than me. And when they're making little winces, it's not good enough, you know what I mean? And so he told me, you really ought to take lessons. And I said, oh, I know, but I'm busy. So I was in the band, I fudged my way through for a couple months until he was like, no, you really have to take lessons. So that's an Italian's way of saying you take lessons or you're out of the band. So I started taking lessons. And he says, okay, play something for me, play something. And I did, I played something, I don't remember what it was. And he said, okay, you're going to have to relearn everything, but you're going to be okay.
Good, it's good.
He says, no, he says, you understand music, but your technique sucks. 6 months later, 8 months later, and I was dedicated to this. I had carpal tunnel syndrome.
Let me transition into Music from the Soul is interviewing different celebrities from different fields that had success. So I'm going to summarize how Rich is a guest, and then we're going to transition into what song he picked. So, Rich, publishing has been a lot of hard work, but in all honesty, from the outsiders, when you get a book deal, and it's in every bookstore in the country, you have made it to a certain level where many writers and authors didn't. So, how many books have you written? What was the first one that you got a publishing deal? And just give me a minute, right, on How many books? And that's how we've got you here, because you're a successful author.
So the very first book I wrote was 600 pages. It was about, college. I just couldn't get it published. The second one I wrote was, I knew it was more professionally done. It was much tighter. It was much more commercial. And I finally came across a publisher.
So Jack of All Trades actually led to the first book that got in every bookstore in the country.
Absolutely. The first book, Jack of All Trades, it didn't make it into every bookstore, but nonetheless, it was in a bunch of stores in New York. It was in a bunch of stores in New Jersey.
Got you
and
started.
I was able to say, here's my book. It's in these stores. You might have even have seen it. It's been reviewed. A few agents called us back. It's like, real agents who had real bestsellers and things like that.
Yeah.
He sent it out to 13 publishers. 12 rejections, and then the last one was an acceptance. The Lazy Person's Guide to Success was published by Simon & Schuster, and it was all over the place.
How many books have you had published? How many what's the number?
Well, a dozen are out there. I'd say 9 were published by a real publisher, and then a couple are out there, like self-published on Amazon. Before the Glory was probably the most significant writing I had ever done.
So that's a little bit of the writing and publishing side of Rich Herschlag, and now we're going to go into the question of the interview. Each celebrity guest that we have interviewed goes into this song that has meaning to a portion of their life. And what's the portion of your life? What's the song? And why did you pick it? It's a lot, but fire away.
I heard a song called Jane Says, which was off of their first album called Nothing Shocking. It just blew me away for a lot of reasons.
So Jane Says,
Yeah.
I've got to look it up, I've got to listen to it, but I will do so. But the content of that song moved you for, if you're picking one song,
Yeah.
You got 59 years on the planet.
Yeah.
So
It's-
I'm all ears.
Yeah, I mean,
what's in this song, and what's the connection for a 25-year-old kid?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's better than every song ever written by Dylan or the Beatles or Simon and Garfunkel, but it just had a weird connection with me.
Go ahead.
First of all, it was only 2 chords. When you listen to it, it sounded much more complicated than that, but when you broke it down, it was just 2 chords, strangely. So that's already impressive. But lyrically, to me, at least for a modern pop rock song, it was perfect. And it wasn't obvious. It was taking the darkest elements of human life and putting a spin on it I had never heard before. Perhaps it's therapeutic, lyrically therapeutic. Perhaps it's a very dark topic, but the song, the melody is uplifting, which I have an affinity for. That's counterintuitive, but there's something to be said about taking the worst in life and making it into the best.
One line from the song, one powerful line, and what did he get out of it? So I transitioned it to you. You got a long song. Pick your line and connect with it. Fire away.
Okay, it's really one long line or a verse. Jane says, I ain't never been in love. I don't know what it is. I only know when someone wants me.
Jane says, I never been in love. I don't know what it is. I only know when someone wants me.
When I heard that as a 25-year-old, because it's about being addicted to drugs, right? But the drugs are replacing something else. The drugs are replacing some kind of need. A lot of times it's love, attention, it's parental guidance, it's whatever. And when I heard that is beautiful. That is so sad to never know what love is, but to know when someone wants you, you're basically just reacting to something. And you know me, I'm not a sentimental guy. The first time I heard that, I wanted to cry. So I said, I'm going to be into this band for a long time. I want to see what else. The rest of the song is as good as that. I was like, in music, you have musicians and you have poets. And I thought that they were poets, in addition.
That's pretty good. Now we're going to listen to a little bit of Rich and Jane's Addiction.
Jane says, ooh, yeah.
That's powerful. Jane Says, Jane Addiction, Rich Herschlag. That was one hell of an episode. Thank you, buddy.
My pleasure.